The 30-room mansion is gone. The staff of 28 is a memory, and the man once known as the Duke of York has just been forced into a reality he never thought possible. Surrounded by a perimeter of high-security fences and the pungent smell of liquid manure, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor is finally realizing that the palace gates have closed for good. But as the moving trucks depart Marsh Farm and the doors lock from the inside, a new and much darker chapter of isolation is beginning. It makes you wonder, how much further can a royal fall before there's nothing left to lose? The keys were handed over in total silence. After months of high-stakes defiance, the standoff at the Sandringham estate has finally reached its breaking point. Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor is no longer fighting to stay. He is officially a man in exile. Moving day didn't involve a royal procession or a formal farewell. Instead, it was a grim, tactical operation carried out under the watchful eyes of estate security. The destination is Marsh Farm, a property that sits like a lonely fortress on the edge of the marshes. For years, this house was a forgotten relic, left to rot in the Norfolk damp. Now, it's been transformed into a high-security enclosure, surrounded by a 2-meter perimeter fence and a newly established no-fly zone. But the renovations can't hide the jarring reality of his new neighbors. Just days before his arrival, 20 industrial tankers lined the access road, dumping 150,000 gallons of liquid manure onto the surrounding fields. The scent is overpowering, a constant, pungent reminder that the manicured gardens of Windsor are a lifetime away. Inside, the luxury is paper-thin. While a 6-figure sum was spent on new carpets and high-speed internet, the grand halls have been replaced by cramped corridors and 5 modest bedrooms. There is no room here for the small army of staff he once commanded. The valet and the lone chef now navigate a house that feels more like a bunker than a home. Even his elite security team has been pushed to the edge of the property, living out of a second-hand mobile home that sits on the uneven, potholed grass. It's a world of silence, isolation, and rotting wood. But as the sun sets over the marshlands, it's becoming clear that the physical move was only the beginning of the dismantling. Because while Andrew settles into his new gilded cage, the few allies he had left are starting to make their own quiet exits. For the first time in his life, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor is finding out what happens when the front door stays closed because there's no one left to open it. The move to Marsh Farm wasn't just a change of address, it was the total evaporation of the royal service machine. In the 30-room luxury of Windsor, he was insulated by a staff of 28. Now, he's waking up in a house where the halls are silent and the kitchen is mostly empty. The most staggering blow hasn't come from the king, but from the workers themselves. Reports have surfaced of a literal servant strike on the Sandringham estate. Long-time employees were reportedly given the option to opt out of serving the new resident if they felt uncomfortable. And the list of those saying no thanks is allegedly growing by the day. He is a total pariah in his own backyard. The man who once expected a small army to cater to his every whim is now living with a skeleton crew so small it could fit in a single car. But as the internal walls of his support system crumble, the external ones are being reinforced. Marsh Farm has become a high-tech fortress, complete with upgraded security and a perimeter that keeps the public at a distance. Yet, the person who was supposed to be behind those walls with him is nowhere to be found. After decades of being inseparable, the living arrangement with Sarah has finally shattered. While he settles into his Norfolk exile, she has reportedly reached her breaking point, fleeing the country entirely. She wasn't spotted at the farmhouse or anywhere near the Sandringham gates. Instead, grainy photos have emerged of her, thousands of miles away, hiding out in a £2,000-a-night luxury chalet deep in the Austrian Alps. The soulmates who shared a home for 20 years are now living in 2 different worlds. And as the alpine snow falls around her, the reality for the man left behind at Marsh Farm is becoming clear. He isn't just losing his housing, he's losing the last person who was willing to stay. The isolation at Marsh Farm isn't just about the new wooden fences, it's about a silence that has become deafening. While the former royal roams the newly carpeted halls of his Norfolk farmhouse, The voices that once defended him have vanished. He is effectively living in a social vacuum. Every morning he wakes up to a house that was prepared for him with a six-figure renovation, but no amount of high-speed internet or luxury flooring can fill the void left by a family that has officially moved on. The public snub during the Easter 2026 celebrations was the final undeniable signal. For the first time, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor was missing from the traditional royal lineup at Windsor. Instead of the high-profile walk to church, he was spotted alone, driving his Range Rover through the muddy back lanes of Sandringham. The palace didn't offer an excuse. They didn't need to. The image of him steering through the Norfolk fog, flanked only by a skeleton security detail, told the story better than any official statement ever could. Even his own daughters, Beatrice and Eugenie, have reportedly maintained a calculated distance. The fortress at Marsh Farm was built to keep the public out, but it's increasingly keeping his closest relatives away too. The house, which sat empty for 5 years before his arrival, now feels like a storage facility for a life that is no longer being lived. Inside, he is reduced to a man cave trailer on the grounds, a private retreat outfitted with its own kitchen and bathroom, where he reportedly spends hours alone, away from the main house. But as the walls of Marsh Farm close in, a new threat is emerging from the very ground he stands on. The luxury renovations have hit a bizarre and symbolic roadblock that no amount of money can fix. It turns out that while the palace was busy installing security cameras and no-fly zones, they ignored a problem growing right under the front lawn. And this latest complication is about to turn his gilded cage into a total nightmare. No amount of high-tech security can stop the ground from shifting beneath your feet. While the palace spent a fortune installing infrared cameras and reinforced gates, they seem to have overlooked the crumbling foundation of the land itself. Marsh Farm isn't just isolated, it's sinking. The property sits on a notorious floodplain, and with the heavy spring rains of 2026, the local marshes are beginning to reclaim the territory. The potholed access road that once carried moving trucks is now frequently underwater, turning the gilded cage into an actual island. The 20 tankers of liquid manure dumped on the surrounding fields have created a toxic perimeter, with the runoff creeping closer to the farmhouse doors every day. It's a sensory nightmare that no high-end renovation can mask. The man who once looked out over the pristine, manicured acres of Windsor is now staring at a rising tide of mud and agricultural waste. But the physical rot is nothing compared to the institutional erasure happening behind the scenes. Within the halls of Buckingham Palace, the name Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor is reportedly being treated as a ghost. His office has been shuttered, his personal effects have been moved to deep storage, and even his historical achievements are being quietly scrubbed from official records. The institution is moving with a cold, surgical precision to ensure that when Prince William eventually takes the throne, there is no York problem left to inherit. He is being written out of the story in real time. Even the local Norfolk residents, who are used to royal neighbours, have turned their backs, with local shops reportedly being told not to expect his patronage. He is becoming a shadow in his own home, a man who lives in a house that doesn't officially exist on the royal map. And as the floodwaters rise and the silence grows heavier, the final question remains: what happens when the king decides that even this remote exile is still too close to home? The reality of the Norfolk exile has finally set in. Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor is no longer a prince in a palace. He is a resident of Marsh Farm, living behind a 6-foot fence in a house that smells of wet mud and liquid manure. The royal family has made their choice, opting to protect the crown's future by cutting away the rot of the past. As the floodwaters rise around his new farmhouse and the silence from the palace grows louder, it's clear that the man who once had everything is now left with nothing but the shadows of his own history. The era of the Yorks at Windsor is officially over, and what remains is a lonely farmhouse on a windswept marsh. But the question remains, is this the final chapter or just the beginning of a much deeper disappearance? As the King and the Prince of Wales look toward a modernised monarchy, there may soon be no room left even for a ghost in Norfolk. What do you think about the royal family's decision to move him to Marsh Farm? Is it a fair punishment or a step too far? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the secrets behind the palace gates. Thanks for watching.